You're listening to Should You Read It? Should You Read It is a weekly podcast that looks at books that can help business owners. I provide critiques and recommendations so that you don't have to wade through everything out there and can get back to running your business. Additionally, with each weekly book, we'll look at how it relates to other books in its field and what ideas cross over along all the books that I've read. Welcome to episode 5 of Should You Read It? And this week, we're going to be looking at The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. The Heaths in this book take a look at how we can leverage the moments in life to maximize their utility. But they don't stop there. They give us a number of tools we can use to design the moments that matter for those we lead. So let's get into the review. Our life is comprised of discrete moments. We get up, and that's a moment. We come in the door to greet our spouse, a moment we tell our kids off, and that's a moment. Go right into the book right away. Here's a quote from them. Our lives are measured in moments, and defining moments are the ones that endure in our memories. Now the question for us is, how are we executing those moments? Are we being intentional about them? Are we using them to their potential? Right? There are two goals in The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. First, they want to show us what the defining traits of moments are. And second, they want to equip us with the tools that we need to create defining moments in our lives and the lives of those we interact with. So let's start by getting on the same page as the Heaths with our definition of what a defining moment is. So here it is right out of the book. A defining moment is a short experience that is both memorable and meaningful. That means a defining moment can be anything. Any event that is memorable and meaningful. It could be that time your parent took you to the aquarium 25 years ago because previously you had once talked about thinking jellyfish were interesting. According to Chip and Dan, there are 4 elements of defining moments. First is elevation, which boosts sensory pleasures and if possible adds some surprise. Number 2 is insight. That's rewiring our understanding of the world. Number 3 is pride. This is when we're captured at our best. Number 4 is connection, something that we share with others. Defining moments don't need to have all of these elements, or even 2 of them actually. A defining moment simply needs a single element to be defining for the one that's experiencing it. They use these 4 elements as the backbone of the book, walking us through each area to give us deeper insight into what it means and how to bring these moments into our lives. Before we dive in deeper, there's at least 2 other interesting thoughts that they get into before the book that we need to understand. First is the peak-end rule. Here's a quote from the book. When people assess an experience, they tend to forget or ignore its length, a phenomenon called duration neglect. Instead, they seem to rate the experience based on 2 key moments. 1, the best or worst moment, known as the peak, and 2, the ending. Psychologists call this the peak-end rule. There's a unique and at least makes me feel slightly uncomfortable study about colonoscopies where they made the procedure longer by a minute. But that last minute was merely mildly uncomfortable. And instead of wiggling the tube around that's in your butt, they held it still. Patients had a longer discomfort by that time, but the end wasn't as painful, simply uncomfortable. And they rated this procedure as less uncomfortable. They rated the procedure better overall because the end wasn't quite as bad. Even though the discomfort was longer, it was a better procedure. You see this again in their note on service encounters. Here's a quote from the book. A study of service encounters asked customers to recall recent satisfying and dissatisfying interactions with employees of airlines, hotels, or restaurants. Almost 25% of the positive encounters cited by customers were actually employees responding to service failures, slow service, mistaken orders, lost reservations, delayed flights, and so on. When employees handled these situations well, they transformed the negative moment into a positive one. I have seen this in handling of some of my outdoor gear. When a product broke down well before it should have and was handled well, I've continued to confidently purchase from the company because I know they'll deal with any issues that arise. I have been wearing Chaco sandals for a decade after having issues with 2 pairs early on, but their return process was so easy, and I didn't even return them. They just sent me free pairs that I continued to buy them, and since then they've been great. For freelancers, this is important to remember. When a project is going off the rails, how do you handle those issues? How do you deal with the ending? That's going to predict fairly well what the customer's opinion of you is. If you end the project well, you're way more likely to get repeat business and referrals. Now, let's dive into the backbone of the book and the 4 elements of defining moments. First is elevation. Moments of elevation are those peak moments. Remember the peak end rule. The medals we earn, but not the participation ribbons because we know deep down that everybody's getting them anyways. It's winning the school election as the peak moment. This is what competition is for kids, something that we are continuing to strip away from them. A peak moment is the first time you let your kid plan a family outing and it goes well. They have a peak event that they can think back on with a sense of accomplishment. It's like a growing up point. We can handle this in 2 ways. We can play defense, noticing the moments as they happen. We do this at home as we tell on each other for someone being awesome. We'll do that at the table. I'm telling on Eden, which is my oldest daughter, because she got her sister ready today for me. This is a great place to start, but we also need to play offense. Playing offense means that we look for ways to bring elevation experiences to those we can influence. In our house, it's actually the first overnight backpacking trip where you carry your own gear on your back. It marks a growing up stage and something where you get to pick a hiking stick to go with the rest of the family sticks that are on display at the house. You have graduated into this, greater thing. Now, it happens around 3 or 4 here, so it's not like they're adults, but they've certainly grown up a little bit. Moments of elevation are actually even preferable to filling in all the bumps in the experiences of those around you. You need to fill in the big holes, the big, gnarly things that are going to trip them up, but you're actually much better off moving someone from a 7 out of 10 rating, so the 7 out of 10, 10 being the happiest customer, going from a 7 out of 10 to an 8, then moving some from a 2 to a 4. Customers going from a 7 to an 8 to a 9 are far more valuable to you than improvements at the other end of the scale. Now, there are 3 keys to building moments of elevation according to Chip and Dan. The quote from the book. To elevate a moment, do 3 things first. First, boost sensory appeal. Second, raise the stakes. Third, break the script. To have a proper moment of elevation, we need at least 2 of these elements. Breaking the script happens when a customer has a problem and they leave the encounter with support, shaking their head and grinning. It's the child, stuffed animal, that is left at the hotel, and when the animal's mailed home, there's a whole bunch of pictures of the animal going on extra vacation adventures. It's now a peak moment for the kids and for the parents. Sensory appeal is about making the event big and inviting. One story provided in the book is the appeal of showing up to announce which college you'll be attending to your whole school. It's a big event like a graduation where hundreds of people show up for the announcements. Raising the stakes is making it big and making it matter. The Heaths also tell the story of a mock trial in front of the principal and some local lawyers and the captain of the football team. People that have significance in the kids' lives, people that matter, people they look up to. The stakes of not performing well in this scenario means something to them. Note that the thing that kills these big moments is being reasonable about them. Here's a quote from the book. Ignore the soul-sucking force of reasonableness. Otherwise, you risk deflating your peaks. Speed bumps are reasonable. Mount Everest is not reasonable. It's going to be a lot of work to rent that hall for the announcement of which college you go to organize all the teachers, to organize all the families and get the chairs set out. It's a bunch of work to bus kids into the courtroom, to make sure the lawyers are going to be there, to make sure the mayor is going to be there, the captain of the football team's involved, and they're actually involved in it. It's a huge amount of work for us to take 3 kids out on a backpacking trip and really encourage and cajole them the whole way so they keep going to earn that hiking stick. Being reasonable is how we get stuff like Employee of the Month, which in the eyes of employees often just rotates between the people so that everybody gets a turn. Reasonableness is going to be loyalty cards with prescribed levels. It's easy for the company to do, but it's hardly a moment of elevation in your customer. In fact, a lot of times they just think it's required now and then they're upset if you take it away. So if you want to break the script and shy away from reasonableness, then you need to look at the next moment. It's going to apply to managers that need help in taking the risk to break that script. Second one was making moments of insight happen. One of the great stories provided for moments of insight in The Power of Moments is a story of taking a team of software executives and asking them to use the product they sell and manage, just like a customer would. After a whole day, many of the teams of executives had nothing to show for their effort. Here's a quote from the book that I love. It says, "You can't appreciate the solution until you appreciate the problem." These managers had insight into their product. They realized how hard it was to use. It was harder than they expected, and then they embarked on making fundamental changes that many of them had been resistant to just days before. There's nothing like being that CEO and manager and also a client, like those old hair commercials. We also see moments of insight as we look at mentors. Those relationships of people that we trust and that are a few steps ahead of us. Those people that encourage us and call us on our crap so that we can affect change. Mentors are going to call us to a higher standard with their wise criticism. This is important to note because you need to be looking for mentors and you need to take the responsibility of being a mentor seriously. As a mentor, you have a huge responsibility to those you mentor. You can bring about huge amounts of change if you take that responsibility. Mentors can be especially impactful when they help build the pride of the people they call to action. The people that they call to be better, the people that they call to greater insight, and the people that they recognize. If you're a mentor, you need to be doing this. Now we're going to look at building moments of pride in a person. Pride isn't just working hard. It's not just winning. It's courage, which can only come in the face of risk and fear. Let's go to the book. And moments of pride capture us at our best, showing courage, earning recognition, and conquering challenges. It's having that skill noticed by others. If you're in a mentorship role, remember this. A single word from a mentor recognizing a skill can send someone sky high in pursuit of mastery. It's getting promoted, winning an award, having your hard work recognized, having the skills you are best at used and desired in your field. Here's a quote from the book. Of all the ways we can create moments of pride for others, the simplest is to offer them recognition. Now, this also goes back to playing defense with the moments. This is seeing that your worst salesperson is actually the best at smoothing the feathers of annoyed customers and praising that ability. They're never going to win the highest sales prize, but noting in a meeting that they are the go-to person for difficult clients is going to build them up, is going to make them better in the team. Finally, our fourth item, we need to connect to have strong moments. Here's a quote from the book right away. Moments of connection deepen our relationship with others. Some of the fastest friends that I've ever made that continue to stick are those friends I made climbing and kayaking. Most specifically, those friends I made whitewater kayaking. Really, on most basic climbs, nothing happens. You climb up, you get lower down the rope. That's it. But even on the simplest whitewater runs, things happen. Beginners flip over and need a rescue. An advanced person has some random mishap and need a rescue. They need to suddenly rely on others to get them out of the water safely and quickly before the mishap turns into something more serious. I was a leader on a beginner run once, and I flipped over, and my paddle got caught between two rocks when I was upside down, and it broke. And I needed to get rescued by beginners, and they thought it was hilarious that they had to rescue the person that was there. But my paddle broke. That just happens. These are all moments of connection. Teams of us, at times, work to rescue that stuck boat, or to pull someone random off a rock in the middle of the river. We connected through these experiences. Now, we're also going to see this in the happiness advantage. There's a link to my full review of that in the show notes. Principle 7 specifically. Let's go to that book, quote from the happiness advantage. The heart of Principle 7, that when we encounter an unexpected challenge or threat, the only way to save ourselves is to hold on tight to the people around us and not let go. We need these close connections to make it through the tough times, people. In groups, we make these connections by having a shared purpose. Here's a quote from The Power of Moments. In the last section, we saw that the moments of pride come when you distinguish yourself as an individual. As a result of achievements or courageous actions, you are made to feel special. But for groups, defining moments arise when we create some shared meaning, highlighting the mission that binds us together and supersedes our differences. We are made to feel united. For kayaking rescues, the shared meaning was getting everyone home alive and unhurt. I've seen this over and over as we've guided camping trips too. Teens that spent 2 weeks together and dealt with rain, wind, hard days, and rescues. These teens talked 20 years later and traced their friendship back to working together during that tough, challenging trip. I even think of one girl specifically who had been kicked out of all the schools in Toronto. And it was a tough trip. She worked hard. She pulled her weight. She just kept going at it, and it was a total transformation in her life, and she built some of the closest friends that I know she still talks to this day. Building these moments is something that remote teams need to look at closely. Remote work is amazing for day-to-day interactions, for getting the regular tasks done, but it's terrible for building cohesiveness. Let's go back to the power of moments with a quote. Remote contact is perfectly suitable for day-to-day communication and collaboration, but a big moment needs to be shared in person. No one dials into a wedding or graduation after all. The presence of others turns abstract ideas into social reality. Now, for us to help create these connections, teams need to meet regularly. More than yearly, preferably quarterly. More than just a planning meeting, they need to have other shared experiences together that will build shared purpose. Finally, connection comes from responsiveness. That's the little moments around us. When we come home, does our spouse acknowledge us? Do they do more than grunt at us? Or do they turn to engage us? Here's a quote from The Power of Moment. Our relationships are stronger when we perceive that our partners are responsive to us. Now, there's some very outdated ideas in See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. One great one is that we should be focusing on how we put our effort into relationships with our spouse. Now, in Ziglar's mind, he says that my wife should have the children neatly dressed, lined up in a row, dinner should be on the table, and she should be freshly showered and have makeup on to greet me at the door. Clearly, we're a bit dated here, people. But should she put effort into how she greets me when I come home? Yeah, absolutely. Should I be putting effort into how I come home and the first interactions I take with her to make sure that I show her she is the most valuable relationship I have? Absolutely. Here's a quote from The Power of Moments. What does unresponsiveness look like? You walk in the door distraught and your partner doesn't even notice. Anti-understanding. When you describe your newest interest or passion, your partner seems uninterested or dismissive. Anti-validation. In a situation where a hug or soothing comment would go a long way, you get a blank face. Anti-caring. Non-responsiveness is corrosive. It deprives us of our individuality. We're not seen or treated as special. Being responsive means showing up and showing interest when the people around us are excited about a new hobby. We don't dismiss this as another fad. We take time to share it and what they're interested in. We do this because non-responsiveness is poison to our relationship. Now, as always, our last question is, should you read The Power of Moments? While this wasn't as quotable as many books I've read, the ideas churning through my head are huge. My wife's a figure skating coach, and we brainstormed for an hour on how to build moments into the kids' skating progress to help them stay around and stay interested in the sport. I work with the client to build moments into their customer journey to help make their business stand out. I've given 2 copies away to younger people who are just entering into their lives as mentors as they take new leadership roles. I gave away copies to all the skating coaches my wife works with. Cynthia and I are working on moments. Cynthia is my wife. We're working on these moments that we can use in homeschool and in general with our kids to build their pride and confidence so that they can continue to grow and continue to see these marked moments in their life. So, if you didn't guess already, yeah, you should buy the book. And then you need to act on it so that you can build more powerful experiences for those around you. Thanks for listening to Should You Read It? To support the show, you can leave me a review in iTunes or heart or a star in whatever podcast player you use. These help more people find the show. If you want to get more reading done, you should also look at an Audible membership. If you get one using curtismchale.ca/recommends/audible, that will support the production of the show financially. In our next episode, episode 6, we're going to look at Great at Work by Morten Hansen.